Coming up on Arirang News, South Korea's exports so far this month are down 0.2% from a year ago. There were some bright spots, though. Semiconductors up more than 43%. The government says it's going to pay out the next round of disaster relief money before the Chuseok holiday at the end of this month, paying the money first and verifying eligibility later. And South Korea reports another 176 cases of COVID-19, mostly in the capital, as the government decides whether to ease up on social distancing. It suggested before, though, that the number would need to be below 100. It's 5 p.m. here in Seoul. Thank you for tuning in to Arirang News. I'm Devin Whiting. We start with the coronavirus situation in South Korea. 176 new cases reported on Friday. The government's still considering whether to extend or lift the recently tightened social distancing measures. Jang Tae-hyun has the latest.
South Korea reported 176 cases on Friday, the 9th straight day that the number has been between 100 and 200. Out of the 161 local cases, 116 are from the capital region and 15 are imported cases. Prime Minister Jong Se-kyun said Friday that they're still considering whether to extend the strengthened distancing measures in the capital region beyond this Sunday. Even after the distancing measures, the number of cases is not sharply declining, so the government is planning to look at the numbers over the next day or two before deciding what to do.
Citizens, especially those in the capital region, please don't go out over the weekend unless it's necessary. Please stay home so that we can stop this discomfort.
A cluster infection at Yonsei Severance Hospital has been linked to 18 cases as of Friday. There have also been 8 cases linked to the district office in Seoul's Jonglo district. In Gyeonggi-do province, 8 people related to a fabric company and a low-cost dormitory facility in Seongnam have been confirmed with the virus, and 11 cases have been linked to door-to-door sales companies in Bucheon. The total number of cases stands at 21,919. South Korea reported 4 additional deaths on Friday, raising the death toll to 350. Jang Tae-hyun, Arirang News.
In other news, South Korea and the U.S. are setting up a new working-level consultative body so they can stay in constant touch about issues like defense. Meeting in Washington Thursday, South Korea's first Vice Foreign Minister, Kim Jongun, and his U.S. counterpart, Stephen Biegun, agreed to establish the Alliance Dialogue for officials at the director level. Discussions there will likely include the allies' stalled defense cost-sharing negotiations. Aside from that, the two sides have agreed to closely work together to resume dialogue with North Korea. South Korea's foreign ministry says that Che invited Biegun to Seoul for a follow-up meeting at a later date. This week, journalist Bob Woodward revealed personal letters exchanged by the leaders of North Korea and the United States. Now, President Trump has commented on Kim Jong-un's health, saying that it's good and that Kim should not be underestimated. Kim Yo-sun reports.
U.S. President Donald Trump took to Twitter on Thursday saying that North Korean leader Kim Jong-un is in, quote, good health. He wrote that one should not underestimate him. Although he did not explain further, it seems Trump is dismissing months-long speculation that Kim may have serious health problems. The statement comes just a day after Bob Woodward disclosed parts of letters exchanged between the leaders of Washington and Pyongyang that will be in his upcoming book, Rage. According to USA Today, the book also claims Trump expressed an intent to withdraw U.S. troops from South Korea. Woodward wrote that President Trump ordered to, quote, get them out while he was talking to then Defense Secretary James Mattis. As for the health condition of the North's leader, America's top diplomat declined to comment when he was asked Thursday during an interview with Fox News. During the interview, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo once again called for Pyongyang to return to dialogue to bring about the regime's complete denuclearization and a bright future for its people. Denuclearization talks between the two countries have stalled since February 2019, when the two leaders held their second bilateral summit in Vietnam, but walked away without reaching a deal. Pompeo elaborated that his mandate continues to include full denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. He also pointed out that the regime faces many challenges, especially related to its economy and the spread of COVID-19. Amid such difficulties, Pompeo expressed hope that Washington can provide humanitarian assistance to help many suffering in the north. Kim Yo-sun, Arirang News.
South Korea's exports so far this month are down 0.2% compared to the same period last year. According to the Korea Customs Service, exports came to $14.9 billion in the first 10 days of September. The daily average declined on year by an average of 11.9%. Exports were led by memory chips, up by 43%, and cars, up by 8.4%. In the last 2 months, exports fell 7% in July and 10% in August. The latest round of COVID-19 relief funds will be handed out before the Korean Thanksgiving holiday of Chuseok, which starts at the end of this month. The payments will be aimed at helping the people hit hardest by the pandemic, including small business owners. Ji-young has the details.
The South Korean government has announced that it'll first distribute the relief funds from the fourth supplementary budget to all eligible applicants as soon as it can and will verify their qualifications later.
The government will go all out to provide financial support before Chuseok for those who were hit hard by the pandemic, including the unemployed, vulnerable workers, small business owners, employers who have kept their workers for longer than 30 days, and parents with young children.
The fourth supplementary budget is worth $6.6 billion, including relief payments of various kinds. The Finance Ministry announced on Friday the guidelines for how it'll distribute the payments and who is eligible to get them. Around $2.7 billion is set aside for small business owners who were hammered by the strengthened social distancing measures. A lump sum of $840 will be provided for small businesses, including restaurants outside the capital area and wedding halls. Those who had to reduce their operating hours due to the social distancing restrictions, including restaurants and bakeries owners in capital area and franchise coffee shops, will be provided with $1,260. And businesses that couldn't open at all, including cram schools and PC rooms, will get $1,680. People can apply online at the Small Enterprise and Market Service webpage or in person at district offices. Businesses who are in the adult entertainment or gambling industries or those who are deemed wealthy, such as building owners who lease real estate, will not be able to get financial support from the extra budget. The government will check qualifications at a later date, and any business that receives funds that it shouldn't qualify for will have to return the funds. Ji-young, Arirang News.
Time now for an in-depth look at the market news on this Friday, and for that I'm joined on the line by Mr. Daniel Yu, global strategist at Yuanta Securities. Mr. Yu, thank you for making time this afternoon.
Thank you for having me today.
Well, stocks on Wall Street down quite a bit overnight, but the futures are up just as much right now. It seems investors don't know which way to go when it comes to these big tech stocks. What's happening in the global markets?
Yes, as you said, the market is quite volatile at this point in time. The reason for that is because overall market in general were up quite significantly from the bottom of March. If you look at the S&P, it's up more than 60%, and Nasdaq was up more than 80% in a short period of 5-month period. And that's probably causing the current volatilities. And given the fact that the futures maturity is coming towards end of next week, so volatility is probably inevitable at this point in time. If you look at the U.S. market trend yesterday, it was quite strong at the beginning of the day, but it closed with deeply red on Thursday, following the sharp rebound that we saw in the previous session. And the reason for such a correction, we don't see anything major other than the political uncertainty that seems to be continuing in regards to the additional boosting measures. And also, I guess people are quite uncomfortable with the tech shares at the current point in time, particularly with Tesla share price being very volatile and falling from the peak to bottom of almost 34% plus. If you look at the Senate, the Democrats blocked a Republican aid plan, claiming that its insufficiency to mitigate the pandemic cost, as it did not include a second $1,200 direct payment to individuals and the new relief for state and local government, and reduced unemployment insurance to $300 per week for the previous from the previous 600. So clearly there is a discrepancy between Democrats and Republicans in regards to the boosting or the supporting aid for the COVID-19. On the corporate side, the overall IT segment, shares like Amazon, Microsoft, Apple, all suffer quite significant drop, while Tesla, being the biggest dropping company, it did recover quite nicely the day before, and yesterday also was up, but it kind of lost most of its steam. All in all, market is expected to be fairly volatile going forward until probably end of next week.
Well, that uncertainty in the U.S. is rubbing off on investors in Korea, it seems. The Kospi and the Kosdaq both down today. Tell us about the local markets.
Right. Despite such a volatility that we are seeing in U.S. market, yes, Korea is volatile as well. But the level of volatility seems to be fairly minimal. If you look at Kospi yesterday, it added about 0.87%. After a decline of 0.75% in the previous session. And then today, the market was kind of fairly down for the most of the day, but towards the end, it closed slightly up, where basically the Kospi was kind of flat, while Kosdaq was up about 0.47%. I think that the government support in regards to this fourth supplementary budget is making the investors feel a bit more comfortable, and government's clearly attempting to aid struggles of the small businesses facing massive closures amid this unprecedented social distancing restriction that we're seeing right now. The government is willing to spend about 7.8 trillion won, another $6.6 billion towards the small businesses and as well as households. And the level of the new cases for COVID-19 seems to be reasonably stabilizing, but nevertheless, still it's well above 100 cases per day. So the level of social distancing is remaining at this current point in time, and that is causing some discrepancies in terms of the equity market for Korea.
As you say, I misspoke there. As we saw, the Kospi was up just a fraction of a percent there at the end of the session. But oil prices we see are falling again on a surprise increase in U.S. inventories. Gold rising for a third day in a row. What's the story in oil and gold, and where do you see them going?
Right. In terms of the liquidity condition, it is very strong at this point in time. So if that's the case, the oil price or the gold price should be going up. But even with high level of liquidity, in terms of demand and supply side for oil seems to be kind of broken in a sense, because more and more so the demand for the electric cars is rising versus the gasoline cars are declining. And also the current economic condition is clearly in negative territories in terms of the growth rate. So therefore, demand side seems to be quite poor. So that's the reason why the oil price remains to be below $40. We've been saying that the oil prices, the paradigm shift has actually occurred both sides of demand and supply, and therefore we're not going to see $70, $80 per barrel in the future ever, maybe. Most likely the range bound will be somewhere between, say, $35 to $50 range, and that is clearly much lower average than we saw in the past 20 years plus. In addition to the oil price, gold price did recover quite strongly yesterday, but today it seems to be falling by about 0.7%. Silver is also going down by about 1%. Also, in general, I think the volatility remains to be quite high because we're quite uncertain how fast the global economy is going to recover, and also the global inflationary pressure seems to be timid. If that's the case, then the gold price rising might not be as strong as most of people anticipated. But we believe, though, high level of the M1 growth rate of almost 40% year-on-year growth, we think that the gold price has more room to go up, somewhere between 10 to 20% over the next 12 months or so.
We'll be watching that for sure. Thanks so much for coming on today, Mr. Yu. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
South Korea has been elected as a member of the UNESCO Intangible Cultural Heritage Committee for the third time, becoming one of the agency's 24 states parties. Kim Jong-un reports.
South Korea will be contributing more to protecting intangible cultural heritage around the world. At the 8th session of the UNESCO General Assembly in Paris on Thursday, South Korea was elected as a member of the UN Cultural Agency's Intergovernmental Committee for the Safeguarding of the Intangible Cultural Heritage. This marks the third time since 2008 that South Korea has been elected to the 24-member committee.
The fact that South Korea was elected 3 times shows that the international community acknowledges Korea's effort and contribution in protecting intangible cultural heritage.
According to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, it was a tight race with India also fighting for a seat in the Asia-Pacific group. Of 146 countries present, 80 backed South Korea. This means Seoul will be in the decision-making process, including which intangible cultural heritages are inscribed on the heritage list, as well as defining the use and allocation of UNESCO funds. Korea currently has 20 intangible cultural heritages listed by UNESCO. The South Korean government is planning to push ahead with having Yeondeunhwae, the Lantern Lighting Festival, and Talchum, the traditional mask dance drama, and making fermented Korean sauce added to the list in the coming years. The term is 4 years, but a country cannot serve consecutive terms and has to wait 2 years for another chance to join once their term is over. 최정윤, Arirang News.
And that brings us to the end of this newscast. Thank you for watching.